Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are here with Austin from Ohio, and today is Saturday, August 21st, 2021. As expected, this is continuing to move forward. We no longer need to predict things now that are terrible coming down on us, but at this point in time, it's all just manifesting. And we just have to stay up to date on this stuff. That's really all I have to say. I want to thank all of you again for tuning in yesterday to the live that I did. I always appreciate everybody being there and all that. Yep, and if I'm useful to humanity at this point in time, I'm gonna act on that. So, for those of you who depend on me for information, I do it for you. All right, let's jump right in. This is my local news channel. And so, obviously, I'm going to run it. Full FDA approval for Pfizer C19 mark could come Monday, report says. This is huge. And we already went over what people were saying. Literally, we talked about it in the live yesterday, how people are going to be like, oh, now you no longer have an excuse and this and that. Because we all know the FDA is fully corrupt, and if they could have gotten away with approving it right at the start, they would have. Yeah, these are the people that allow all the poisons in the food, the water, the, poison that we call medicine, just all of it. The FDA approves Monsanto. Let's just put it that way. This is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Full FDA approval for the Pfizer C19 mark could come Monday, according to a report from the New York Times. According to the report, regulators were aiming for approval Friday, but were still finishing up paperwork. The report warns approval could slip past Monday if more time is needed. Pfizer's application for full approval, submitted in late May, includes the latest data from a large study that tracked participants 16 and older for 6 months after their second dose. The mark is given to people as young as 12. And that's terrible. That literally is terrible. In some places, they're giving 12-year-olds consent to go behind their parents' back and get this thing. I feel like people don't understand how serious that is in and of itself. And Pfizer also intends to submit data needed for full approval in that age group. The way the FDA's mark program is designed should help it in its efforts to expedite the full approval of C marks. This is because manufacturers with C marks approved for emergency use, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer, had to follow the same FDA guidelines used for all marks. Full approval for Moderna's mark is likely to follow a few months after Pfizer's. Pfizer announced that it had applied for full approval of its mark for people ages 16 plus on May 7th. It did not receive priority status from the FDA until 2 months later. So they have to give the illusion that the FDA is actually, seeing if this is good for people. They're literally just buying a couple weeks and maybe a month or two before they could approve it. And for the reason that we already went over. People are already saying, I put a screenshot up yesterday of that. People in comment sections already saying, now you don't have an excuse. Oh, conspiracy theorists. Oh. Good move. Very good move. U.S. health officials Wednesday recommended all Americans get C19 booster marks to shore up their protection amid the surging Delta variant and evidence that marks' effectiveness is failing. And this is originally from the Associated Press and news station, contributing to the report. And once this one goes, it's going to be, you think they're getting ready right now to institute all of these mandates. Which, of course, not very good. Let's move on. All right, next up to bat. CDC investigating Moderna mark as data indicates heart side effect more common than previously thought. And this was published on August 20th. So yesterday. This is what they do when people start to find out that people are being affected by this thing. And they come out and they do damage control pieces like this. Oh, I hope these pop-ups don't mess with my recording app. We'll just keep pushing on through. Even as the federal government is demanding more people to be marked against the situation, questions are being raised about the side effects associated with one of the 3 marks allowed in the U.S. Officials are exploring evidence linking the Moderna mark to inflammation of the heart, known as myocarditis, in younger adults at a higher incidence than it was previously thought, according to the Washington Post. Side effects have been reported in virtually all forms of the mark, but health officials have maintained a strict party line. The benefits of getting the mark outweigh what have been termed the rare side effects. Okay, so I always love when they use the terminology side effects. What do you think all of these different medicines, what they call it, especially this, they just, those are just side effects, and it's better than, actually getting the virus. Well, there's a lot going around right now that would indicate otherwise. People's personal stories. So, yeah. This is what they do for damage control. They do this when a whole bunch of people start to figure it out, and they're like, well, now we're opening an official investigation, and people say, oh, good, yeah, accountability. These people are going to be held responsible. And nothing can be further from the truth. The Post, citing 2 people familiar with the review, said officials from the Food and Drug Administration and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention are examining data from Canada indicating that Moderna mark may pack a higher risk for young adults, particularly men under age 30, than the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Oops, said the word. Said the word. Gonna get taken down. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Here's something for you. We know that this NWO one is going to be, well, it's officially going through trials next month. That's the one, the one that we were reading last year, the scary one. So, what if they are setting it up for everybody to figure out how bad these ones are, so when they bring that one out, people will be more willing to accept it? Because, oh, we got the Department of Defense involved and the CDC, and we went through rigorous tests and ran all these studies and this and that, and this one is perfect and safe and effective, and it'll save lives. Possibility. Okay. The investigation includes a review of American data to see if the pattern discerned in Canada is taking place in the United States. Quote, we have not come to a conclusion on this, one source told the Post. The data are not slam bang. One source said the Canadian data showed 2.5 times higher incidence of myocarditis in Moderna recipients than those given the Pfizer mark. Quote, FDA is absolutely committed to reviewing data as it becomes available to us, FDA spokeswoman Stephanie Kokomo said in a statement. Quote, we have previously communicated about myocarditis and C19 marks, and if new information changes the risk-benefit profile, we will update the public accordingly. Yeah, we will update you accordingly whenever we feel like it, after people find out what we're doing here. So, yeah. The report renewed the ongoing debate over the mark on Twitter. And they need this. They need everybody to argue over these things. In June, the FDA said the Pfizer and Moderna marks had an increased risk for myocarditis in teens and young adults. Yeah, and that's probably true. But the problem is they probably said that, when something else huge was going on, and they slipped it in a line in an article one time. The goal, we told ya. And we already knew there's no liability. They set that up beforehand. They literally set it up to where they cannot be held liable. Blows me away. Alright, recording's still working. In a statement, the CDC said its Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices has and continues to review reports of myocarditis and pericarditis following C19 mRNA marks. CDC, FDA, and our mark safety partners are actively monitoring these reports, including reviewing data and medical records to learn more and understand any relationship to C19 mRNA marks. Damage control. The Post report said even if there's a higher risk, the condition would likely remain uncommon. One can just open their eyes and see that that's not the case. Quote, reported cases appear to be mild and often go away without requiring treatment. CDC spokesman Benjamin Haynes said in June when the initial concern about the condition was aired, according to the Post. He said the reports of heart inflammation in those marked are rare, given the number of marked doses administered. And that's the end of that one. So, yeah, all this stuff is going to keep going on, and we just need to be mindful because everything else is literally nothing compared to taking this thing. We all know what this thing does. So, we don't want any part of that. Moving on. Alright, here we are over at ABC News. San Francisco's new rule. Proof of marker, no dining in. And remember, this is all before any sort of FDA authorization. We're still in that time period, so this is concerning. San Francisco became the first major city in the nation to require proof of full marked against C19 on Friday for people dining inside restaurants, working out in gyms, or attending indoor concerts. And one of the main arguments is, it's just dining halls and it's just restaurants and stuff. You can just eat at home. You don't have to go to the gym to work out. Just stay home and you don't have to go to a concert. But this is how it starts. Next thing you know, it's your kid's school. Greg Ryken showed up at his favorite lunch spot in San Francisco on Friday with an appetite and a V card in his hand. A manager at Sam's Grill and Seafood Restaurant verified he was fully marked against C19, put him on a list of customers who have met the city's new requirement for future reference, and walked him to his table. Easy, Ryken said as San Francisco became first major city in the U.S. to enforce the strictest marked mandate for entering restaurants, bars, gyms, and large concerts. Man, that's some conspiracy theory. Passports to move around the country and to, go into establishments and whatnot. That's a conspiracy theory. That little conversation took place in 2020. Now we're seeing it literally played out and put in place. Businesses posted signs and added extra staff to begin verifying people's mark and identity cards before allowing them in. Many gyms had already been checking their members' mark status before the health order went into effect. Quote, we tested systems in place to see how we would do it. We were talking to our customers, getting our staff prepared, and we're so thrilled to have the full-throated support and leadership of our city, so we can confidently walk into this new landscape together, said Tracy Sylvester, owner of Pilates Studio in Mission neighborhood. This new landscape, this new world. Well, we're going to need a new world order for this new world. Pete Sitnick, a managing partner of Water Bar, an epic steak restaurant on the city's waterfront, said he was worried about slow check-ins resistance from guests against the requirement or people showing up without proper documentation. Showing up without proper documentation. Yeah, here's all my information. Here's my medical history. Here's everything about me. All out there. So far, he said, the lunch crowd came with marked cards in their hands, and the line to get through the door was short. The good thing is, if somebody doesn't have their verification of marks or certificate of VID, COVID, it's really just crazy. But he said the good thing is, if somebody doesn't have their mark of the card, they can still eat outside. Yeah, you got to go eat outside like a dog. These are people, you know. You don't know that person's story. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they can't take that. You just see that they don't have a little card that you want them to show. And you say, "Good, outside now, mutt. You're diseased, you unvaccinated person." There's an option, and we just need to be ready for different scenarios, he said. Mayor London Breed announced the requirement more than a week ago in an attempt to stem rising C-19 cases, saying she was worried the highly contagious Delta variant could disrupt the city's economic rebound. She also hopes it will encourage marked holdouts to join the 79% of the population that has gotten their shots. This is not a punishment, Breed said. It's really about a chance to try to get us moving in the right direction and keeping people safe. Well, it sure feels like a punishment. Mandate goes further than New York City, which requires people to be at least partially marked for a variety of high-risk indoor activities. In New Orleans, which requires proof of mark or negative C-19 test for indoor dining or drinking. All three cities make exceptions for people who don't qualify for the mark, including children under 12. And they're going to take away the whole, or you have to get a test thing. And they're going to say, no. They're just trying to get people ready. It follows a number of tough safety measures San Francisco imposed since the beginning of the situation. The city and its neighboring counties in the Bay Area were the first in the U.S. to issue a stay-at-home order and was the first big city in the nation to require all city employees to be marked, without the option of testing regularly. This week, the city sent letters recommending a 10-day suspension without pay for 20 employees and police, fire, sheriff's departments who refused to report their mark status by August 12th deadline. San Francisco Chronicle reported. And here we go with this guy. Governor Gavin Newsom has also tightened the rules after announcing the reopening of California's economy in June. He has required healthcare workers to get marked to keep their jobs, and all teachers and state workers to either get marked or submit to weekly testing. Local business groups have supported the new mark mandate, saying it will protect their employees' and customers' health and keep them from having to limit capacity indoors. Some businesses had taken upon themselves check for proof of mark at the door, said a citywide policy helped set clear expectations for all customers. Yeah, because you need to be managed, you free people. Jody McCord said the mandate forced her to cancel plans to meet relatives visiting from Wisconsin at her favorite dining spots because not everyone in her party is fully marked. They had to take their reunion across San Francisco Bay to a restaurant in Sausalito. It puts people between a rock and a hard place, McCord said. And you know what? That's the truth. And that's just one simple example. They go, just get it then, and you would have been able to visit your family. People are ready to snap on everybody at any given second. And it's not good. It's not a good thing. It really isn't. This is, like we were talking about yesterday. It's getting through people's subconscious and affecting them, even though they might not realize it. They might not realize this is a bad thing to do. We lost so much in the last 18, 19 months. And we're still doing the same exact thing as we were doing then. Online ordering and reservation systems such as OpenTable are helping businesses by warning customers of the mandate ahead of time. The city's hospitality industry has launched a campaign called Relax, where, you could read that, to get the word out to travelers. City officials said a paper card issued by the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, photo of the CDC card or digital, this is interesting, or digital mark credential will suffice. Proof of mark issued by foreign governments is also acceptable. It's funny because we were telling people literally, certificate of the identification. They laughed, and now it's literally playing out, and they still laugh. That really bothers me. How can you be so blind? Pierce Cleveland, co-owner of the Temple nightclub, said the security guards have been trained to check all forms of proof, and they have caught some people with fake V cards. We've had people get upset at the door when they're turned away, but in general, they're understanding or compliant. Workers have until October 13th to prove they are fully marked, and Cleveland said he expects to meet compliance by then. A lot of October deadlines going on. Lot of deadlines in October. The nurses, these guys, all of it. It's going to be winter time. October is starting to get cold. At least where I'm at. So, I'm not sure. After a sharp increase in C cases and hospitalizations in the Bay Area over the summer, numbers appear to be leveling off, but remain high, said Dr. Peter Chin Hong, expert on infectious disease at the University of California, San Francisco. He said reinstated restrictions have helped slow the spread. There's no magic bullet, just a combination of hard stick and soft stick, he said. The proof of mark mandate is a soft stick because you can still eat outdoors, but if you want to hang out with people indoors, you better get marked. If you want human interaction, you better get marked. If you want to go visit your family, you better get marked. This is starting to become too real. We can literally see a day when people will be coming to your door. It's never been closer. The rate that people are accepting all of this, I don't even want to know what it's going to be like in a year. Moving on. Alright, and this is going to be pretty quick because this is literally just this paragraph. See? Well, actually, oh, wow, it's way down there. It looks like it ends right there because there's the guy that wrote the thing. But anyway, okay then. New Yorkers will have to now show photo IDs in order to engage in public life, along with proof of marks, the mayor said, whatever works. All you have to do is show that proof and have ID as well. So, yeah, photo ID and mark passport required by Mayor de Blasio to move freely in New York City. Yet another example of before the FDA approval, they're already doing these things. If you live in New York or near there, you need to leave now. So there's all these ads. I'm definitely going to leave this one because it'll crash my recording app. But yeah, so New Yorkers will now have to show photo IDs in order to engage in public life, along with proof of mark. The mayor said whatever works, all you have to do is show proof and have IDs as well. So yes, to freely travel around New York City. Moving on. Alright, here we are over at American Military News. 11,000 Americans remain in Afghanistan, only hundreds evacuated so far. So, yeah, they're trying to justify sending soldiers over there because we got to rescue the Americans, guys. Which, if that's true, they were put in that position by these people. So, at least 11,000 Americans in Afghanistan have identified themselves to the State Department, and thousands more. Estimated 15,000 could still be in the country. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters on Tuesday that 11,000 U.S. citizens self-reported to the State Department. However, national security officials told Senate aides on Tuesday that there are as many as 15,000 U.S. citizens left in the country, according to the Washington Post. And people are going to be like, yeah, go get them. Brigadier General William D. Hank Taylor told reporters at the Pentagon on Tuesday that roughly 1,400 people had been evacuated from Kabul since August 14th. Late Monday night into Tuesday, 7 evacuation flights left Kabul with approximately 700 people, including 165 American citizens. And it's sad because people go there, and then now all of a sudden the CIA starts playing their games and building up this show. The Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul was secure and evacuation flights were taking place as of Tuesday, according to U.S. Central Command Commander Gen. Frank McKenzie. Stark contrast from the gunfire and chaos that disrupted flights out of the airport on Sunday. And the sad part is, say that all this is true, it's sad that we can't even know that for sure. Because we know that they have lied about, let's see, more recently, the Turkish border crisis. That was a gun show in Kentucky. So things like that come out and it, causes confusion because you don't know what's real and what's not. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters on Tuesday that the U.S. had asked Americans to come to the airport, get on flights, and take them home, but confirmed the U.S. has received reports of people being turned away or pushed back or even beaten. He added the U.S. was concerned about the issue could continue and said U.S. officials were holding talks with Taliban officials to try to resolve those issues. As it stands right now, we are getting people through the gate. We are getting them lined up, and we are getting them on the plane, Sullivan said. They're really playing it over there. They're really getting ready for something. I wouldn't be surprised if this, kept the now 20-year war going. As recent as one day earlier, Americans were told to shelter in place and avoid attempts to travel to the airport until they heard otherwise from a U.S. government agency, Department of State spokesman Ned Price said. Another perfect example of why people, it doesn't matter who you are. If you want to be armed, you should be armed. But these people were probably banned from being armed, and now the government is playing games, of course, to get them out of there. And those people might be in some kind of jeopardy. But no, you got to shelter in place, because they can't have none of that going on. Price said many Americans are in Kabul and others are not, but he did not mention the total number of Americans remaining in Afghanistan, or how Americans outside of Kabul could leave the country. Senate aides told Washington Post administration officials that there's currently no plan to evacuate Americans outside Kabul due to impassable Taliban checkpoints. And they expect people to believe this. If they really wanted to get those people out of there, one at a time, all the operations that they pull, not for us, all the operations that they pull in general, they could use some of that energy to run extraction operations and extract like 1,000 people at one time. Boom. All right, guys, 14,000 to go. We've got to do this 14 more times, well coordinated. We'll get these people out of here. But no, they're saying that, we can't pass through the Taliban checkpoints. The ones that we built for them to use against us. So we can make a worse conflict and further destabilize the entire Middle East. I didn't say that. You can cut that part out, right? Okay, yeah, we'll cut it out before we put it on Fox. All right, we're good. Make sure my recording app's doing all right still. I'm always really concerned about the pop-ups because more times than once, they've crashed my recording app. It'll just say, like, the little floating ball right here will just go away, and then I'll go back into it and it'll say corrupted video. So, we're good so far. Multiple administration officials have said that each U.S. military and commercial flight has the capacity for hundreds of passengers, but many seats remain empty because of processes required for evacuees. And we know that they're building up this rhetoric again and, allowing the Taliban to become pretty powerful again, even though half of them are probably CIA operatives themselves. But they have to give the illusion that these people could carry out some sort of high-level attack against the American homeland. Like, look at all this stuff that they got from us. All this biometric stuff and missiles and guns and stuff. And, yeah, we don't know how they got them. They overran our people. Yeah, we know how they got them, but Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said the U.S. has the capacity to fly out 5,000 to 9,000 people from Kabul per day if the airport can continue to be secure without evacuation flights being interrupted. At full capacity, he said evacuation flights should be able to reach completion by President Joe Biden's August 31st full withdrawal deadline. Taliban spokesperson Suhail Shaheen told Sky News on Tuesday that the group is committed not to attack Americans leaving Afghanistan and added that they should complete withdrawal before September 11th. It's unclear what consequences they may inflict on Americans if that deadline is not met. Before September 11th. So there's another little date that is of significance that they throw in there because remember the DHS bulletin. Everyone's talking about the 20th anniversary of September 11th. They're leading to false flag on a major scale. Moving on. Okay, well, actually, this is kind of ridiculous. They want me to have a subscription to read this, so I will pull up this article on a different site. Sorry about that, guys. Little hiccup. Okay, here's one that's basically the same. Orlando mayor urges water limits due to surge of sea cases. So that's kind of weird. Since the 1990s, the utility has used liquid oxygen to remove the slight discoloration and rotten egg smell that's found naturally in Florida's water supply. Yeah, found naturally in Florida's water supply. The mayor of the Florida city of Orlando asked residents on Friday to stop watering their lawns and washing their cars immediately, saying water usage needed to be cut back because of the recent surge of C-19 hospitalizations. The Orlando Utility Commission treats the city's water with liquid oxygen, and supplies that ordinarily go toward water treatment have been diverted to hospitals for patients suffering from the V, Mayor Buddy Dyer said. Or that's an excuse, and this is Agenda 21. Cutting back on, water because you're using too much and other people need it, but they're the ones who hoard all of it. They control the water. We acknowledge that the number one priority for liquid oxygen should be for hospitals, Dyer said at a news conference. The city-owned utility typically goes through 10 trucks of liquid oxygen a week, but its supplier recently said that it would be cut back to 5 to 7 trucks a week to accommodate hospitals, said Linda Ferrone, OUC's chief customer and marketing officer. You know that water is pretty, especially down in Florida, it's pretty abundant. It's pretty abundant, but only when there's restriction of water by human beings to other human beings that all of a sudden there's a shortage. About 40% of the utility commission's potable water is used for irrigation, so any strain to the water supply will be greatly reduced if residents stop watering their lawns, washing cars, or using pressure washers, she said. On its website, the utility said residents should prepare to follow the conservation measures for at least 2 weeks. Oh, 2 weeks? Where have we heard that before? Oh, we're going to flatten the curve of water in 2 weeks. I mean, the virus. The virus. Jeez. And pretty soon 2 weeks turns into a month, and then we know the drill. So, we realize this is drastic and unprecedented, Ferrone said. If worse came to worst, we would have to look at a boil water alert. Since the 90s, the utility has used liquid oxygen to remove the slight discoloration of rotten egg smell, blah, 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 blah. And that's basically all it says. So yeah, they're still forming narratives on top of carrying out other narratives. So they just keep adding to it. And all this stuff is on the back burner right now because of the Afghanistan thing. So you got to think about that as well. Moving on. All right, and this just adds to it from the Hill. Brace yourself. Inflation's coming back stronger than ever. And this was August 20th, so yesterday. The Federal Reserve insists that the current price inflation is transitory. Every sign points in the opposite direction. However, and we need to understand the economic and political implications of what's about to begin, an era of high inflation. As designed, between the end of World War II and 1980, the West, including the United States, experienced price inflation. It came to an end in the early 1980s after a traumatic 1970s, which saw the collapse of the post-war Bretton Woods monetary arrangement, including the convertibility of US dollars into gold, and the emergence of oil-producing Arab dictatorships as major players in global politics. We are about to embark on a new inflation-dominated era. And I wonder how, the collapse of the US dollar turning into gold, I wonder if that was instigated in the emergence of oil-producing Arab dictatorships. Oh, I wonder if we kind of put those in place too. Yes. Well-coordinated operation this is. All of it. For years, the United States and other Western nations have spent colossal amounts of money and incurred huge debts with only modest rises in consumer and producer prices. Inflation occurred elsewhere in financial assets, for instance, but the Fed's money printing did not bring generally higher prices because families and companies, reeling from prior excesses, paid off debts and reduced spending, while banks focused on restoring their capital base rather than lending. But that was all bound to end. The country could not raise its debt by 40% in 2 years, as the federal government has done since 2019, according to my calculations of the Treasury Library's monthly statements of debt, or spend more than $6 trillion in 2020 and incur a 15% fiscal deficit on top of years of prior prolificacy, all without consequences. Nor can the Fed spend money to buy assets, increasing its balance sheet to more than $8 trillion, up from $4.3 trillion in 2019, and not expect that money to spill out into the economy at some point. There are signs that this is already happening, and it's only the beginning. Yes, and they knew that, and that's why they cared. That's why they did all that. And they had to, right, for the situation. So, this is a well-coordinated bring down of the entire world. That's why they made the US dollar the world reserve currency. That's why they got every nation to basically get involved with the United States, because they were going to use the United States and they were going to use free enterprise and the things that were created out of free enterprise, and they're going to build a new world order, which they're doing now, which takes you back to the secret destiny of America and that whole thing. If you want to know more about that, read Manly P. Hall, Secret Destiny of America. That's how far all this stuff goes back. Those bankers in 1913, the Federal Reserve, drafted this up, and it was signed into law on December 23rd, 1913. For this reason. And at first, it was only for 100 years, until 2013. And then nobody said a word about it. That day came and went. Not so much as a news report about it. And next thing you know, now it's indefinite. This whole credit system that they've built, no matter how many terms or people think they know a lot about the money system and how to get rich and this and that, it's all based on credit. Paper currency always resorts back to its intrinsic value, which is zero. And I forget who said that, but that was a quote from somebody. I just can't remember who at this point in time. I think it was Voltaire. It was Voltaire. Yep. So, yes, they knew all this was happening. They knew that the economy would go, and then they could do this at a later date. They knew all this. Let's skip this paragraph here, but let's go to this one. The dollar is still the world reserve currency, but it's bound to lose that status eventually, just as the British pound lost it to the dollar in the 20s, and other currencies lost their dominance before that. Notice how they're talking about that. The dollar losing its status eventually. That's when they will bring in the world digital currency, or whatever currency they're going to use in their new world order system. This was meant to happen, and when the dollar loses that status, it is going to affect all the nations of the world on a wide scale. And people would say, oh, it happened before in Britain in the 20s when they lost the pound. Yeah, but the pound it wasn't like the U.S.'s influence all around the world. It was a lot different back in the 20s before all of this. It's fascinating to see U.S. authorities hell-bent on encouraging the process. Why would they be so keen to facilitate the weakening of the dollar? Because it's the easiest way to lessen the consequences of too much spending, too much borrowing. There is simply no way for the U.S. government to pay what it owes, but it can inflate its way out of a big chunk of that debt. Yeah, it's always been that way. This is all interest-based. It's all fake. It's all just being prolonged, kicking the can down the road type stuff. This is unreal. And now, the way it is, they're going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, did you buy all this stuff with Federal Reserve notes? Yeah. Do you have that value in gold or silver? No. We're taking your property, everything you have, and if it doesn't add up, we're taking you. This was talked about a lot. The government calculates that as more and more baby boomers come knocking on the doors of Social Security and Medicare, stating the current financial arrangements and meeting its liabilities will become impossible. Inflating the debt, debasing the currency, is its only solution. You can be sure the Fed will continue to characterize the inflation as temporary, just as other leading Western nations will, so that they can continue to inflate. It's not going to be fun. Anyone who is living under significant inflation knows the havoc it causes. But while destroying savers and earners, inflation is a boon for debtors who can repay in devalued money. There will also likely be international implications in the era of inflation. Holders of hard assets, including commodities whose prices are already pressured by supply and demand imbalances, will prosper. Look for some Middle Eastern and Latin American dictators, or would-be dictators, to gain, and for Russia's Tsar to regain some economic strength, while the liberal democracies in the West struggle with domestic issues. The financial chickens have finally come home to roost. The era of inflation will have a momentous effect on our lives. Picture will not be pretty, at home or abroad. We better begin to face the facts. There's nothing transitory about them. So, this is also going on. It's just a lot at one time. That's why this is all happening. And it's pretty genius, to be honest. Moving on. Alright, I meant to bring this one up earlier, but I was just going down the line. But this one is rather interesting, to say the least. Check this out. U.S. Senator Baldwin introduces Disease X Act seeking $2 billion to help BARDA with future viral preparation. Interesting. About 10 days ago this was published. I'm sorry, I should have been on it before then. This is one of those articles where I would normally make a short video, but I didn't think of it until now. And I apologize for that, guys. From Homeland Preparedness News. U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin introduced legislation last week that would allocate $2 billion to the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA. The Disease X Act would provide $2 billion over the next 4 years, $500 million per year beginning in 2022, for BARDA to create a Disease X medical countermeasures program. Sorry, I looked down at the recording to see if it was still going. The program would be dedicated to making and improving responses as of yet unknown viral threats through efforts like developing a medical countermeasures program, collaboration with other agencies, channeling administration of various federal investment strategies through a single source, improving equity and funding specifically American companies. So anybody knows anything about math, obviously that's a variable. So like, anything we want to label this, and we can, so we can put this into effect. And I want to dig up this Disease X Act and dissect it, so we can actually see what's in there. Infectious disease outbreaks now occur 3 times more often than they did 40 years ago, Baldwin said. The next situation, driven by an unknown disease X, will come. We should not be waiting for the next viral threat to emerge. We must invest in development of novel antivirals, marks, and diagnostics for unknown threats, so that now we are better prepared to control and the spread, and then we were at the start of the COVID-19 situation. So, Obviously, they're saying that they're gonna hang on to that. They're gonna hang on to the whole disease narrative, biosecurity. That this is how they're building their system. And I know that this is all, I sound like a broken record for people that have been here, but the people that come across this video, I still try to think about those people, because they will. People do come across these videos all the time. Really look into this stuff. Don't just discount it. Just really look into it, and you will see it, the agenda playing out in your everyday news. And people that are just coming to this channel that saw this video, please go back and just start at the beginning of all of my videos. I literally covered it all. When I first started my channel, I was going through a whole bunch of things. I was covering all angles, anything that we could talk about. I did entire videos, hour long, on the Federal Reserve. I did United Nations. I've done all of it. Granted, I had to delete 25 of my videos when there was a time that I was scared I was going to lose all my channels, because they were just cherry picking through my videos. But, honestly, like, we're not just saying this stuff. We're not making it up. We're not crazy as you would be told out in the world and on television. There's a reason why so many people are now understanding what's going on, because it's literally in your face. They're literally beating you with a stick and then pointing the finger at me and people in this community and people out in the world. They hit you in the head, you look, and they point to the next guy and you fight the next guy. You can't do that. These people are pulling this, and it's going on right now. This is the event or series of events that they've been waiting for. And all we're waiting is for one catalyst. One catalyst to set it all off. And if it goes that way and you don't understand where we are and why this is going on, then you are going to be in serious trouble, spiritually, mentally, and physically. Really, it all goes back to God. That's where it goes back. Control over humanity. Heaven and hell are very real places. More real than the grass you see in your yard. Humans, we just have, we don't have like, how can I word this? We tend to only see what's in front of us. We don't ever wonder anymore. Really, people don't wonder about things anymore. And wonder is actually like not just, I wonder why this, I wonder what. No, like wonder, like that term, like just wander out into your mind and explore and read and understand and come to a consensus of what you believe and why. And why this time in history is so critical. They're saying it. Everyone's saying it. They have a narrow window of opportunity. They had one at the beginning of 2000. In 2001, that David Rockefeller said, we have a narrow window of opportunity that'll close. And then it closed, and now it's open again, narrow window of opportunity. This time they have a lot better chance, and they're doing it right now. So, that's all I will say on that. The profound effects of this situation should galvanize members of Congress to do everything in their power to prevent a world situation like C-19 or worse from happening again, and to be better prepared if it does. Anita Cicero, Deputy Director of Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, said, one of the people involved in Event 201. Actually, Senator Baldwin's legislation to establish a dedicated Disease X medical countermeasure program will enable the U.S. to rapidly develop drugs, diagnostics, and marks against unknown viral threats in order to save lives, safeguard the economy, and future events. In addition to Baldwin's proposal, the Biden administration has offered a $3.2 billion plan to spur antiviral research, specifically for developing new drugs and tests showing whether existing drugs will be useful against SARS-CoV-2. Weird, when they're talking about labeling the entire situation, they call it C-19, but when they talk about the, quote, virus itself, they say SARS-CoV-2. The Disease Act has garnered the support of numerous organizations, including Johns Hopkins, International Society for Antiviral Research, FluGen Incorporated, Infectious Disease Society of America, and At-Will Medical Solutions. So, we need to keep an eye on this one. I certainly will. I will do my due diligence and I will dig this up. I will read the text on here like we did with, the gun laws that were going around. We did that. We read the bulletin. If I find things like that, I will bring them on. I need to, I know you guys love live streams and whatnot. I love them too. I love talking to all you guys. You guys are great. We have very, very enlightening conversations. Everybody's so wonderful. But I need to start making more videos like this and really getting down and into the dirt like I did when I first started. That's really what this channel is, honestly. That was my vision for it when I first started, just what I'm doing right now. Just bringing stuff up, showing information, because this stuff needs to be put out there, especially now. People need to understand what's happening, and, the TV and culture and all that they fabricated would have you believe that, we got a cult mentality, and we're all crazy, and we're in like a cult or something, and we're all like doing crazy things and doing that. Like, no, these are regular everyday people like you, like me, like the guy across the street, like the guy that walks down the sidewalk, or the guy at the gym, or the firefighter, or the pizza delivery guy. It's everybody. It's not like a cult thing like people tend to believe it is. And the narratives have gotten so ridiculous just in there. They're just bold about all of it. It's kind of concerning. Moving on. Alright, here's one of the ones that I wanted to put in my last video, but I forgot to. And of course, they're going with this one too. The hurricane. Oh, come on. Get out of here. Stop doing that. Can I read it? Cool. Recording? Cool. I meant to bring this up, but, we had to put it on the back burner because other things were going on, this and that, But they're also playing this because Agenda 21 consists of all of it. This is why people are on fire. This is why people are getting flooded out. This is why hurricanes are coming up the eastern coast. All of it. Climate change IPCC report is a code red for humanity. They're already asking people in certain cities to shut their water down and not to do certain things. We knew the shortages were coming, even though they're manufactured. Food is coming. Please go get some food. I'm starting to do that. I'm starting to get better at it. Human activity is changing the climate in unprecedented and sometimes irreversible ways, a major UN scientific report has said. Yeah, the UN. The landmark study warns of increasingly extreme heat waves, droughts, flooding, and key temperature limit being broken in just over a decade. The report is a code red for humanity, says UN chief. The scientists say a catastrophe can be avoided if the world acts fast. Yeah, governments need to crack down, boom, on everybody. There is hope that deep cuts in emissions of greenhouse gases could stabilize rising temperatures. Echoing the scientists' findings, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, if we combine forces now, we can avert climate catastrophe. But as today's report makes clear, there is no time for delay and no room for excuses. I count on all government leaders and all stakeholders to ensure COP26 is a success. And remember when we were going over the Declaration of Human Rights document, and we went over all of that a while ago? You look at the name UN Secretary General. That is military. The UN is a military organization. It's not an innocent this and that. No, these people are the people that are going to be in charge. Partially. Okay. So make sure COP26 is a success. The sober assessment of our plane's future has been delivered by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a group of scientists whose findings are endorsed by the world's governments. Of course, their report is the first major review of the science of climate change since 2013. Its release comes less than 3 months before a key climate summit in Glasgow known as COP26. Oh yeah, I'm going to be looking that up too. Glasgow. You guys look that up too. Let's find out what that is, and then I'll put it in a video that I'll make in like 2 days. Because that's something that kind of reminds me of, the World Economic Forum summits that they're holding. And now this is a climate summit in Glasgow. These are the type of things that we need to, yeah. In strong, confident tones, the IPCC's document says, it is unequivocal that human influences warm the atmosphere, oceans, and land. And they give you a chart, and they're like, oh, look at these bad numbers. According to Professor Ed Hawkins from the University of Reading, UK, and one of the report's authors, the scientists cannot be any clearer on this point. It's a statement of fact. We cannot be any more certain. It is unequivocal and indisputable that humans are warming the planet. Now, think about this. If what they're saying is true, all of this would be their fault. Those huge corporations that waste, and the big, factories and whatnot that they have going, and all the animals that they're killing, and they're totally throwing the whole thing off. They're throwing all of it off. All the weather, with their manipulations and all that. So they've caused all of these things. Problem, reaction, solution. Pateri Talas, Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, said, by using sports terms, one could say the atmosphere has been exposed to doping, which means we have begun observing extremes more often than before. No, that's kind of odd. Exposed to doping, the atmosphere is... Think about that. The author said that since 1970, global surface temperatures have risen faster than any other 50-year period over the past 2,000 years. This warming is already affecting many weather and climate extremes in every region across the... See how they always use that terminology too? World. We'll say that. Whether it's heat waves like the ones recently experienced in Greece and Western North America, or floods like those in Germany and China, their attribution of human influence has strengthened over the past decade. So they're going to keep going with this. The World Economic Forum is going to keep having their, their summits and their meetings, and Johns Hopkins University, Bill and Melinda Gates, Rockefeller, all of them, they're going to keep having theirs. Clade X is coming up. That's another Event 201 type thing. I believe the last one was in 2018, but it's coming up again. So, could go with Disease X. Not very sure. I should have pulled it up. And I will put it up in the next video. But yes, they're going to keep having all these because these are the people that make the decisions. And they just pass on the decisions down to the governments and say, this is what needs done, get it done. And then the governments roll it out. And then we look at the governments as the cause. When they're not the cause, they're active partakers in this, but they're not the cause. All these NGOs and all of these banks and whatnot, these are the people that make decisions. Those families, the 13 that control all aspects of the world. So, yeah. And they keep going on about, the report key points. Surface temperature was 109 Celsius, higher than the decade between 2011 and 2020, blah, 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 blah. The new report also makes clear the warming we've experienced to date has made changes to many of our planetary support systems that are irreversible on timescales of centuries to millennia. The oceans will continue to warm, they will become more acidic. Mountain and polar glaciers will continue melting for decades or centuries. Consequences will continue to get worse for every bit of warming, said Professor Hawkins. And for many of these consequences, there's no going back. And it's funny how they have to put all of those, globe and this and that. They won't say, in the world or in this, because it goes back to if you understand where we actually live, based on just the facts, nothing else, then it's a little silly to believe all this climate change stuff. But no, they have to make it seem like how they're making it seem. And they're already said there's no going back, and we've already reached the code red, and we got to do something now, before 2030, because that's when the world's going to die, in 2030. No, that's when you set your goal for your new world order. I won't quit speaking the truth. I will not. And if I veer from speaking the truth, if I start going off on tangents about other things, you guys, please bring me back to reality. Because this is what we have to do. This is what I have to do. This is my reason for being in this world. And this is also how they're going to, justify a reduction in population. Oh, we're going to have to hurry up and get rid of people because we've already passed the point of no return and we're all going to die. For this reason. So we really got to, keep an eye on it. And they just keep talking about how it's getting warmer. Every nation on Earth signed up to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015. And that, of course, is tied to Agenda 2030. We already know all of that. Under all the emission scenarios considered by scientists, both targets will be broken this century unless huge cuts in carbon take place. How do we get rid of huge amounts of carbon? What causes a lot of carbon? People breathe carbon dioxide. So wait, okay, we got to get rid of undesirables. I'm surprised they're not saying, oh, humans won't even be able to live in 2040. They won't even be able to live because it'll be too hot. Which is not true at all. They've tried this many times and we keep falling for it. And they just keep trying it like 10 years later every time people catch on. It's crazy. I really just want to skip through this one, get to the quotes and stuff. We will see even more intense, more frequent heat waves. Yes, of course we will. And heavy rainfall on a worldwide scale also increases in some types of droughts in regions of the world. All this will continue because of, you guessed it, we already all know what it is. HAARP, frequency manipulations. So, yes, and look, 2030, the other one said 20. While this report is more clear and confident about the downsides to warming, the scientists are more hopeful that if we can cut global emissions in half by 2030 and reach net zero by the middle of the century, we can halt the possibly reverse rising temperatures. Think about what they're saying. Net zero. Cut carbon in half and reach net zero. Think about what that really means. You can't have net zero as long as a lot of people are alive. It's impossible. And what do they mean by net zero? They say it a lot, they never tell you what it means. Reaching net zero involves reducing greenhouse gas emissions as much as possible using clean technology, then burying any remaining releases using carbon capture, storage, or absorbing them by planting trees. Thought before was that we could get increasing temperatures even after net zero, said another co-author, Professor Piers Forster from the University of Leeds, UK. But we can now expect nature to be kind to us, and if we're able to achieve net zero, we hopefully won't get any further temperature increase. And if we're able to achieve net zero greenhouse gases, we should eventually be able to reverse some temperature increase and get some cooling. A lot of talk about this net zero. And nature will be kind to us, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. As it says, that's the very first commandment, is what they call it, on the Georgia Guidestones. And people will know about the Georgia Guidestones, but most people are like, oh, they just put that there. That could have been anybody. You have to ask yourselves who and why. And then just keep going on about pretty much the same thing. Just, for political leaders, the report's another long line of wake-up calls, but since it comes so close to November's COP26 World Climate Summit, it carries extra weight. So, yes. Let me see if I got one more for everybody, because I'm running out of record time. I'm actually going to bring up this one. If you don't know about this, you need to understand that they're doing this next month for the NWO-based, trial. And this is the one where, in the Times of Israel article, first of all, it's Department of Defense, so jot that down. And second, in the Times of Israel article from last year around, February, March, I forget when it was. It says, quote, the medication is injected under the skin with a needle and activated with a device similar to a toothbrush to deliver an electrical impulse for a fraction of a second, allowing the DNA to penetrate the body's cells and carry out its mission. Now we have them focused on launching a worldwide C-19 Mark trial next month. So they're still going with this. This is the one that they're going to want to get a lot of people to take. And I'm pretty sure INO 4800, which is the name of this mark, is the one from last year in that article. I should have brought that up, but I already have these all loaded up. So they're continuing to move forward. They're continuing to move with their passports to move freely in New York City. They got stuff like this going on. Yeah, the company started developing INO 4800 last year, fell behind rivals, which I think it's very important I think that is what they're going to do. Let all this stuff out about the current ones and say, oh, well, yeah, Johnson & Johnson with their baby powder and Moderna, they did this, and look how bad these companies are, but we're the Department of Defense, we're accountable, we're responsible, we're your government, we would never hurt you, we love you, we want to tuck you in at night. We only want to spy on you to keep you safe. We only send your kids to die in war because, we want to keep you safe. And that's what your kids are for. And the FDA is going through and making sure that this is safe and effective and it's going to save lives. That's all they got to tell people on TV. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. So, and it even puts in here that not only is it the Department of Defense, NWO, which has no approved drug on the market, has so far received, $85 million in combined funding from Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the U.S. Department of Defense for the advancement and manufacture of INO 4800. So Bill Gates coordinating with the U.S. Department of Defense and these other people, so that's really nice. And an expanded partnership with China's AbbVie Biopharmaceuticals to conduct late-stage trial. This is what's going to introduce transhumanism. This is what they want, the Internet of Bodies, the people to be connected to the Internet. Literally. All of your functions, everything about you, all diseases, what you eat, what you shit, what you buy, everything you do. It will be connected to a device. And I think that's where patent number WO 2020-060606 comes in. All this stuff makes total perfect sense. And it all lines up backed by other things that we have talked about before. That is more than mainstream will ever give you. They just get your emotions all riled up. But down here on the ground, we deal in the facts. Without the emotions. But what I would be particularly concerned for, what I am particularly concerned for, is the possibility of a major false flag being pulled off this year. Remember we had a scare a couple years ago and everybody thought it was going to be in Seattle on November 3rd, just based on all the predictive programming? I still wouldn't rule anything like that out. I mean, think about it. This is the same rhetoric they pulled up before 9/11. They're doing this trial next month. They have to speed these things up. They have a schedule to make. They have a deadline to meet. These people are going for all of the marbles, man. I'm telling you. And I wish people would just understand, put their pride aside, put their ego aside, read the facts, understand the news, what's going on in the world. It affects you. You may think it doesn't, but it affects you. It affects me. It affects your children. We just got to be focused on that. Just remember the Department of Homeland Security Bulletin. We had the guy at the White House that did something there. It's the same rhetoric, building up to 9/11. They have to converge all these things. They got everything ready. Now they have to converge it and put it to test. Put it to good use in their terminology. Just going to have to keep an eye out, and I will do a very good job. I will do my due diligence. I am going to read more today. Get a video ready for the next couple days for you guys. But until next time, let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.